Alright, so the first thing we're talking about is greatest common factor and factor by grouping. So, writing a polynomial product, simpler polynomials is called factoring the polynomial. So, for example, 3x times 5x minus 2 can be distributed to equal, oh, I need my pen, 15x squared minus 9x, but then factored back, okay? So, we look at the greatest common factor of 15 and 9. So when I say factor, I say 15 can be broken up into its factors of 1 times 15 and then 3 times 5. And then 9 can be broken up to its factors of 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. So its greatest common factor is 3. So 3 and then the smallest number of exponents, which is x. So we take out a 3x. And when we take out a 3x, we're dividing by 3x. And then we just use our exponent rules. And then we get 5x. Oh, I said 9. Y'all should just get me. How about 6? Now I gotta do this all over again. So this is 6. So we get 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. So then 3 is a common factor. And then divide. And then we get 2. Okay? All right, so that's what we do when we are taking out a GCF. We're essentially dividing. So, greatest common factor here is just going to be 9. No variable, so we take out a 9, so we're dividing by 9, so we get x minus 2. Greatest common factor here is going to be 7. So we take out a 7, so we get 8m plus 5p. Now, sometimes if you mess it up and you take out not the greatest, you'll see that they still have something in common, so you take out more. And then you multiply it by that. Okay. So 2 and 5 don't have anything in common. So we'll just take out 2y plus 5. This one, greatest common factor is 12. So we're left with 1 plus 2x. Okay. Okay, let's do some harder ones. So we're going to take out 3x squared. That's the greatest common factor. And we're left with 3 plus 12x. Okay? Now, if you look, oh, I forgot to factor it out here. So that's how you know you made a mistake, because it doesn't make sense. So that's going to be 4x. That's better. Okay, greatest common factor here. Now, if you're struggling with factors, I actually have a PDF called List of Factors for you on Canvas. Okay. All right, so 32, 24, and 40. Greatest common factor there is going to be 8. Smallest number of p's is p cubed. So we get 4p minus 3 plus 5p squared. All right. This should be a t. Okay, so 3 is going to be our greatest, and then t to the 4th, so it's going to be 1. So anytime we can take the whole thing out, because we're dividing, it's just 1 minus 5 t to the 3rd plus, and then I realized you guys weren't in my headphones. And then plus 8 t to the 5th. Okay. And then this one, you have to be careful because we look at the smallest number of m's and n's. So we're looking at 24, 18, and 6. So we're looking at 6. Smallest number of m's is going to be 2. And smallest number of n's is going to be 1. So I get 4m n minus 3 plus m squared n squared. Okay? All right. So now we're going to factor out the greatest common factor. And it's going to be a little bit harder. If you're squeaking, it's because my dog has decided he wants to play right now as I'm making this video. And I'm ignoring him. Okay. So now we're going to factor out a binomial. Okay. Okay. So I want to find the greatest common factor of these two, and that greatest common factor is going to be x minus 5. Okay, because there's an x minus 5 in this term and in this term. The term that I'm referring to is that whole piece. I should do it in 2 different colors. So this is a term and this is a term. And they both have x minus 5 in common. So I'm going to take out an x minus 5. Remember, I'm dividing. So if I divide by x minus 5, what I have left is x plus 6 plus 2x plus 5. So x minus 5 times 3x plus 11. Okay? All right, let's do another one. So I'm looking at this and I figure out what do this term and this term have in common. They have n plus n. Well, if I take out an n plus n from this term, I get x squared and then plus c squared. And I'm done. Okay? Now let's make it a little bit harder. What they have in common is r plus 2s. But there's 2 here and 3 here. Well, I want the smallest number. I always take out the smallest number, so I'm going to take out r plus 2s squared. And what I have left is p, because I took out 2, minus q times r plus 2s. If you want, you can distribute that, but we're going to leave it because then there's nothing else we can do. Okay, so these are my final answers. Okay? All right. So, factoring out a negative common factor. There are 2 ways to factor out a negative common factor. The first is you can just factor out the negative 1. Okay, if we take out a negative 1, we would actually take out a negative a, right? So negative a, and we get a squared minus 3a minus 5. So you see I took out the GCF and then it changes all the signs. Anytime there's a negative out front, I suggest you take out the negative. Now you could decide not to. You could just take out the a, which would make this negative a squared plus 3a minus 5. Okay? Now, when we factor by grouping, I always do the Spock thing in class. Well, we're not in class, so I can't do it, so I showed you a picture. Anytime you have 4 terms, you group it, and I'm literally doing it right now because that's what we do. So anytime you have 4 terms, you're going to group them and factor by grouping. Okay? So we have 4 terms. We're going to group them at their plus sign and then take out their GCF. So if I look here, the GCF is a. And when I take out the a, I'm left with x minus y. Take out the GCF here, b, I'm left with x minus y. When you factor, these 2 things should be the same. If they're not, you did something wrong. Now, remember what we just did before? We had 2 terms and they had a GCF. Well, the GCF here is x minus y. So, x minus y, take it out, and I'm left with a plus b. And I'm done. Okay? Alright, let's do it again. Now, this time there's a minus sign. So, I'm going to Spock it, but when I Spock it, I'm going to take the minus sign with the second half and create a plus here. Okay? So, take out the GCF of 3x minus y. Now, it's going to be plus, but anytime I have a negative in the middle, I'm actually going to take out a negative GCF, so it's going to be negative a, and I'm left with x minus y. So I get, once I do my terms, I get 3 minus a times x minus y. So if you didn't take out that negative, then you wouldn't have got the same thing here. Okay? All right, let's do it again. So here we go. Group at the plus sign. So when it's not a negative, the plus sign stays on the outside. So here we go. Factor out a 6x, because that's the GCF, and I'm left with a plus 2b. Now, this one, there's nothing to take out. So it's just going to be plus 1. And I'm left with a plus 2b. 6x plus 1, GCF, a plus 2b. Okay? Alright. Now, sometimes when we're factored by grouping, they're not in the right order. Okay? What we need to group isn't there. So, like this one, we're like, it's not right. So you need to get the terms together correctly. So if you look here, these two make more sense being together because they have something in common, 5. And these two make more sense being together because they have something in common, q squared. So how I would do this is I would do p squared q squared. Remember, take the sign with it. Minus 2q squared plus 5p squared minus 10. Now I can Spock it. Take out my GCF. Q squared times p squared minus 2. Take out my GCF. Plus 5 p squared minus 2. GCF is p squared minus 2. I'm left with q squared plus 5. Okay? Alright, let's do it again. All jumbled up. I need things to go together. So if I look here, this is 2kp squared. Well, it has something in common with the p squared. This goes together, so let me put that together. 2k p squared minus 3p squared. And then let's do minus 4k and plus 6. Okay, here we go. So Spock it. Anytime I have the negative, I have to add the positive here. So I'm going to factor out the GCF, which is p squared 2k minus 3 plus factor out the GCF, negative 2k minus 3. It worked. So then GCF, 2k minus 3. What's left? P squared minus 2. All right? Now, before we factor anything, we should always look for a greatest common factor. So that's going to be, soon we're going to talk about that. Anytime we factor, we're always going to look for a GCF. So here we go. Overall GCF here is going to be 5. So if I take out a 5, I get 2ax minus ay plus 2bx minus by. Now I still have 4 terms, so Spock, GCF, a 2x minus y plus b 2x minus y. The 5, it's like your little sister. Can't leave her outside when you go in the grocery store. 5, 2x minus y. It's my GCF, a plus b. Okay, that's my answer. All right, that's 5-1.